Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your kind of fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
August is over and still no win for the Blues. Can United open September with 3 points against Shrewsbury Town? We look ahead to this weekend's clash with the Shrews at Brunton Park and do a little bit of review ahead of the transfer window closing. Yes, we're back to do a preview of this weekend's game. We've managed for the first time in a few weeks, actually, isn't it, Mike, to actually split up the preview and the review episodes. We did want to do it later in the week, but unfortunately, availability means that the only night that two of us are available is Wednesday night, isn't it? So it's the night before the window closes, 1 day to go. Just initial thoughts. We'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute, but do you think United are going to get anyone in?
Well, I think we need to. Whether or not we do, I mean, from what I can understand reading between the lines, is that there's money in the bank to get someone in, but we're going to offload a couple. So there might be even more money in the bank to hopefully get someone who really has the quality that we need.
Yeah, that's what we really need, isn't it, really? I think a few of us have said, haven't they, the squad is looking a little bit... bloated is probably a bit harsh, but it's looking big at the moment, and there maybe does need to be a few shifted out, maybe just to balance out a little bit more, I guess. But there you go. Right, let's get into them, Mike. Obviously, first up, I've got to say a big thank you to our sponsors, the London Branch, for their support again this season. The London Branch is open to all Carlisle United fans, wherever you live, whether that be London, the South East, the Welsh Valleys,
the Galapagos
Cork.
Islands.
You've got one this week, well done. Galapagos Islands. I'm not sure, are you allowed to live there on the Galapagos Islands?
I don't know.
Are they not protected or something? I don't know. What's that one, the one in the Indian Ocean where that tribe lives that no one dares visit because they basically just get killed the second they go on the land?
Oh, Barrow.
Yeah, very good. Barrow Island, yes, that's the one. Wally Island. No. I think it's North Ascension Island, I think it's called. Read about it, it's a fascinating thing. Like, people have tried to go there and basically try and bring this tribe into the 21st century, and they basically just get spears thrown at them. It's
Fair
like,
enough.
Why would you bother? just leave them be. So you basically, wherever you live in the world, you can join the Carlisle United Sports Club London Branch. They sort out tickets and travel for away games. They do a lot of fundraising for the club as well. And if you want to find out more about them, go to their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. Right, Mike. Dan's not given us the question of the week because he's been quite busy, but he's got a few bits for us later. But I've got a question for you. This isn't the question initially, but it's just a sort of question to open you up. When do you reckon the last time we beat Shrewsbury Town in a league game at Brunton Park was?
Ooh, that's a good question. And I feel like it's been a good while. I want to say, obviously we'll do the answer later, but I want to say as far back as 2006.
Ooh, keep going, it's a bit further. It's 2001. January 2001 was the last time, 22 years ago, in fact 22 and a half years ago, that we beat Shrewsbury Town in a home game at Brunton Park. Just astonishing, really, when you think about it, isn't it? Yeah. It's great. There's players playing for us right now who weren't even born when we last beat Shrewsbury Town in a league game at Brunton Park. So January 2001. So my question to you, Mike, and to the listeners, and I'll reveal the answer later on before the X-Files section. What was our starting lineup that day, and who scored the winning goal in the 1-0 win for the Blues?
I wouldn't have a clue.
You're not going to have a clue, so I'll just reveal the answer later on. But you can have a guess at it at least anyway. You can sort of guess that era, but slightly before your time, would you say, or the start of your time?
Yeah, I was very young back then. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll reveal the answer later on to that one. Let's get into the main show now then, Mike. Start off with the news. First up, another bit of reserve team news, isn't it? So, yes, second string. The Blues' second string side, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? Went down to a second successive... Why am I putting so many double S's in it? God. Right. The Blues' second string side went down to a second successive defeat this week as they were beaten 2-1 by Wigan Athletic in the Central League Cup. But it sounds, Mike, like there was plenty of positives to take from this game, doesn't it?
Yeah, big Jaden Harris for one.
Well, yeah, obviously it was a strong Latic side, we should say. I think Josh McGillis was definitely playing once, and there was a few other first teamers in there. They went 2-0 up, but into the second half later on, Jaden Harris popped up and apparently scored a 25-yard screamer with his left foot, apparently. So, he's popping up with a few goals here and there, isn't he? And it sounds like he was one of the top performers in the game. Gavin Skelton, after the game, picked him out, didn't he, for special praise, and said that he'd already got a booking and the ref did warn him if he did one more, he was off, and he was very disciplined in the way he played. So
that's weird. A player getting a booking and then been told that they can't do it again because they get another booking. I don't think that'd ever catch on, to be honest, at first team level anyway. No,
you'd never see that happen in a league game, would you? But there you go. But yeah, it sounds like they were very impressive. I mean, based on what he was saying, would you be surprised if he was on the bench this weekend? I wouldn't. I think it kind of makes sense, wouldn't it? If he's that much.
And I think Simo quite likes people who earn their right to be in the team and force their way in and give him headaches. So hopefully he's done that.
Yep, absolutely. Should be said as well, really good for Dylan McGeek. He got some more minutes in his legs. I think 75 minutes he got in the end, roundabout. So that's really impressive. Slight disappointing though. Ben Parkley picked up a knock, didn't he? Had to come off on 53 minutes for young Alan, who's come on. He's done quite well in pre-season, Alan, didn't he? I think at Chorley in a couple of the games. So yeah, a little bit frustrating that, but is what he is, I guess. Noticed that Jack Ellis was captain again. He's been captain for both of these games, hasn't he? So
I think he was under 18s captain.
He was, yeah. So it's interesting that he's been given the right to do that as well at this level. So that's really good. But yeah, it was just good minutes again for the likes of Whelan, Robinson, Charters, Edmondson and Butterworth as well playing this one. Should be noted that Thomas Holy didn't travel. I think that was basically so Gabe Breeze got a game, wasn't it? I think, and Holy doesn't need the football. He's been playing since the start of the season. But also Terry Abelaide, he didn't play. I think that's more a case of just getting him up to speed and training first, isn't it? As much as anything.
Yeah.
But Joe Garner didn't feature. Now, Gav Skelton said that the latter two stay behind to do more training with the first team. That's Abelaide and Garner. But there are rumours circulating, aren't they? Because they both featured against Blackburn last week. I thought they didn't need the minutes. There's rumours circulating about Garner now, isn't there? That possibly he's on his way out. Yeah,
wouldn't surprise me.
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? He's not featured in the last few games at all. There's just kind of a feeling of like it's not quite going to work at League One level for you, mate. So
yeah, I think if you can't get a game when we're struggling for goals as it is, the writing's kind of on the wall for you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the feeling I get is that he's probably being told you can find something if you want it, and he's smart enough to know, yeah, that's fair enough. And there's murmurs of a potential move to India, possibly, because obviously there was rumours he was off there, wasn't there, before he joined us. So you do wonder if maybe that's just been resurrected potentially for him to move out there. And
I think Eric Kinder's at a club over there, isn't he?
Yeah, with Simon Grayson, I think, possibly. Is Neil McDonald out there as well, maybe?
I think so, yeah. I think Neil McDonald is.
Yeah, so I would imagine if an opportunity like that comes up, he's going to take it, isn't he? I think he's not going to get much game time this season by the looks of things, and it would free up a wage for us as well, potentially to bring another striker in, possibly, to replace him. Yes, so that's interesting to see what comes of that. Other little bit of news is that Owen Moxon has been named in the PFA League 2 team of the season. They had their PFA end of season dinner a little bit late, but they got it done. And to be honest, the League 2 team is exactly the same as the official EFL one, isn't it? So not really a huge surprise there, which kind of suggests maybe that the EFL got it right with their choices on top of what the player votes were. So obviously the PFA one is based on a player vote, it should be said. So
I think so.
Fellow professionals. So,
although I had to laugh the other day, I saw, because you said on Monday that he hasn't really been hitting the heights in League 1 like he did in League 2, but I saw something the other day with the top 10 players in League 2, in League 1 this season, based purely on statistics, and Owen Moxon is right in there.
Maybe it's just the high expectation we got him in the way he dominated games. He dominated games so much in League 2. He doesn't look quite as good in League 1 because it's tougher, maybe. That's what it is. It's the perception. It just feels like there's another gear for him to step up. We've got high expectations of him, haven't we, basically? So that's where it comes from. Yes. Before we get on to talking about the Shrewsbury game, we'll look into that, Mike. So transfer window closes tomorrow. Obviously, we're going to be putting this out on Thursday morning, so it's not out of date by the time it comes out. But we're expecting a busy last day, possibly. Maybe one or two going out, possibly a couple coming in. Do you reckon?
I mean, to be honest, I think only really one is needed to come in, which is a big target man. That's all we need. I mean, I don't think it'll be anything like that transfer window we had under Keith Millen, where we brought in like 5 players in the last hour of the window.
Is there a slight concern that we're looking for our Jonathan Dinzey on the last day here, possibly?
Like I said the other day, I think sometimes other clubs have found their targets late on, and then that's pushed one of their strikers down the pecking order, and they're now willing to let go of them, whereas earlier in the window they weren't. So hopefully, there'll be talented players available. Hopefully we can get them, and we're not just getting the dregs of the barrel.
Yeah. So you mentioned there, obviously, Joe Garner looks like he might be on his way out. There's a lot of nerves about that. But one that we do know there's interest in is Corey Whelan. So Colchester United are apparently lining up a move for him. Just feels like it makes sense, this, doesn't it, really? He's probably 5th choice defender at the moment, maybe. Behind.
It wouldn't surprise me if he goes on to be a bit of a Mark Ellis in sort of getting promoted from League Two quite a few times in his career, but not really going above that.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, I don't think you can understate how solid and reliable he was last season for us.
Oh yeah, and he played a lot more games than people would think as well.
Yeah. You look at his record. I'm going to have a look at a sec while we're talking here, but his record's pretty good in terms of the amount of games he's played. But it's just, we've made that step up now, and it kind of just feels like it's not. I don't know. Simo just doesn't seem quite so convinced, does he? It's interesting. I just googled there, and he's got a LinkedIn profile as well as Corey Whelan. So there you go. And he's also a freelance writer. No, that's not him. That's a different Corey Whelan. Sorry. Well, actually, look at there. I mean, over his 2.5 seasons of it, he's made 60. Yeah, exactly 60 league appearances.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. But, but not bad going for someone who's been second choice for large chunks of that, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I think his best position in all of his time with us was that right centre-back role in the 3. He played a few games in other positions, but I think that was it.
Was he any worse than Feeney in that position? I think he was fairly similar, to be honest.
I think Feeney is a better defender, but I think Whelan was more comfortable in that role.
Yeah, Whelan's problem is he hasn't got the pace. That's the thing that lets him down, isn't it? Really, but I really like him. I feel like this is one of those ones where the club are just like, this is how do you put it? Where sort of doing him as a favour is the wrong phrase, you know what I mean? But we're basically, it's a goodwill gesture almost, isn't it? You've been good to us over the last season. You've never complained when you've been out of the squad. You just got your head down. You've been a good professional. We appreciate you want to play first team football. No worries. Let's sort you out, move, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Pay up a small chunk of his contract so it covers the extra he might not have got at his new club, and everyone's happy really. Hopefully, Colchester, if he can get a move there, he can do quite well there. And you never know. It's good luck to the lad. Whatever happens in the next couple of days, and whether he stays or goes, I think he's one we all really appreciate his efforts last season.
Yeah, and I think should he come back to Brunton Park, I don't think he'd quite be getting the same reception that Morgan Feeney would be getting. No,
certainly not. But look, he played in the final, didn't he? You kind of forget he actually played in that player final. He was excellent. He didn't put a foot wrong in the game.
Well, you forget the semi-final as well. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. And some of those games the game away at Salford last season, he was fantastic in that game after coming on. He's just brilliant performance. Great player, good lad, and let's see what happens in the next couple of days. Yeah, in terms of incoming, you mentioned there, big target man, we need him. I think it has to be a permanent one. There's been a few names flying about. I mean, Josh Coyote has been one that's mentioned the last couple of days. It looks like he's probably going to go to Barnsley, unfortunately, but would you have him back if he was available to us?
Well, the rumour is 150 grand, which, like Luke Armstrong with the 500 grand, I think he's a player who could add to the team, but at that price, I think I'd rather have a loanee that you don't have to pay for.
My problem with that is, right, with that attitude is that people are looking and thinking it's our club record, it's a lot, Our club record was, 11 years ago now? So 140 grand 11 years ago is a fair bit more, really.
True.
It is in official monetary terms, but in terms of inflation, it's not really, is it? And we've got to be realistic. If we want a player of any quality, we're probably going to have to pay around about that 150, 200 mark, maybe.
But I can't really see it. I mean, this is a throwback. We had this quite a few times under Greg Abbott, really, where we just needed that striker to be the finishing touch of the team. And we had it. We brought Pericard in, brilliant. That's the team sorted. And then he went. And we brought Lee Miller in. And Lee Miller was the final piece of the jigsaw. And I wouldn't see Coyote as
but are we able to get
that much to the team?
Are we able to get that kind of player? Probably not. Getting a younger player in who we can maybe mould a little bit more to be that. Plus you got the bonus of his brilliant throw-ins. He's pretty good in the air. He does have a habit of drifting out wide a little bit, but I think he'd be a decent addition. Decent age as well. I'd be happy enough if we got him in. 150 years is quite a bit, but look at it as an investment. Get him on a 3-year deal and build him up. But yeah, there's other players. Obviously, mentioned the lad from Ireland last time, Alaphobia. Yeah. So there's him. There's another one from Barnsley that's been mentioned. If Coyote was to go to Barnsley, potentially signing him, Ollie Shaw, I think it is, who's ex-Kilmarnock. He had a good record at Kilmarnock, to be fair. 14 and 52. 1 in 4. Which you might look and think 1 in 4 is not that great, but that's at least double figures, which is what we need really this season. And then players around him picking up bits. So he's potentially one that's been mentioned. We need to get someone in, and it can't just be an academy product again. It just can't. It's got to be someone with a little bit of experience at the very least for me. Personally, I think I'd like to see a winger come in as well, maybe. Someone to give us a bit of width, but I'm not sure we'll get that. I think Simo seems fairly happy with his lot in terms of that, but there you go. Right, Mike, let's get into the preview for the Shrewsbury Town game. First up, Behind Enemy Lines, it is back. We have got one this week. Earlier today, I spoke to Chris from Salopcast, which is the Shrewsbury Town podcast. We talked about Steve Cotterill sacking this summer and the fallout from that. Their solid start to the season under new boss Matt Taylor and how Morgan Feeney is settling in after his move to Shropshire this summer. So here's the chat I had with Chris earlier today. So yes, we're back with the latest Behind Enemy Lines section where we talk to an opposition fan about their team and find out a bit more about them. And as we said, this season, it's a bit more important because it's our first season back in League One for quite a while. So we're learning a bit about some new teams. And Shrewsbury Town aren't really a new team to us because we've played them quite a few times down the years, I should say. And in fact, we played them in the Cups in recent seasons. But we are going to find out about them now from Chris from Salopcast. Chris, good to have you on.
Thanks very much, Lee. Good to be here.
No problem at all. Right, let's get straight into it. So last season, you guys finished quite a respectable 12th place, didn't you? And it was, I think there was ups and downs there, but you generally had some quite good runs. And I think there was even a point where you thought maybe you could even push for a playoff place. I think it was probably always a bit of a pipe dream, but never in any danger of going down. And yet you got rid of Steve Cotterill in the summer. Seemed to be quite a bit of upheaval in terms of that. So what actually happened there?
Yeah, good question. What happened there? I'm not sure many of us know entirely what happened there. Clearly, there's been issues behind the scenes between the chairman and Steve Cotterill around the budget. There were statements coming out from the club that suggested that he suggested the very future of the club was in peril. And I think he used language as dramatic as that, which is surprising to us, but because it doesn't seem that way, and we've always had a reputation for being a club that's financially well run and lives within its means, as it were, and that can be a frustration sometimes to supporters because you never see Shrewsbury making the exciting big money signings. We do everything within a budget, but equally that does mean that we're never one of those clubs who are in the news for going into administration or whatever. So over the years we've progressed slowly, and clearly the chairman felt that was at risk and he needed to make changes. So that's what he's done. Bye-bye, Steve Cotterill, and hello to this new model that we've got now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, Cotterill was one that kind of divided fans a bit. I've got a mate who's a Shrewsbury fan I've known for years and years, and he's been telling me that, look, he quite liked Cotterill as a manager, didn't necessarily enjoy watching the football that he puts on. And it seems to be one that, look, from the past and knowing what his teams are like, particularly that Cheltenham side when he first got into the Football League, his sides can be quite agricultural, can't they?
we were never pretty to watch. We were a
No.
hard-working team. We operated to a plan and we stuck to it. And, you can't criticise the man for the fact that it picked up results. You talked about us finishing 12th last season. That was largely based around a ridiculously good run in January last year. We won 6 on the trot and then drew the 7th. And at that point, that's when we were dreaming of the playoffs. So I think we were 2 points off at one stage. But equally, you got the feeling sometimes when it did go wrong, we couldn't turn it around. So the end of the season, our squad was ridiculously paper thin, and we went something like, I think it was 2 wins from our last 10, 2 wins from our last 12, something like that. Dreadful finish anyway. And, we were only heading one way at that stage, and it was only that good run that meant we finished as high as we did. But yeah, we were always hard to beat. You never see Shrewsbury get thrashed, and that was we were a difficult. Well, actually, we lost 6-0 to Charlton last season, so I should say you rarely see Shrewsbury get thrashed. But we were a hard team to play against most of the time, and that was Steve Cotterill's identity.
Yeah. So your new man's come in, Matty Taylor. I think you've also got a director of football who's come in. Is it Mickey Moore? I think to work alongside him.
Yes, and Mickey Moore came first. We approached him before the end of the season. That's when it became clear that something was going on, because there was this bizarre news story that we'd made an approach for Mickey Moore as director of football. Steve Cotterill was asked about it before the penultimate game of the season and said he knew nothing about it. And the first he'd heard is when he'd read it in the press. So that's when it became clear that to the supporters that things weren't right behind the scenes. So yeah, Mickey Moore came first, and that was a protracted thing, and it took until the beginning of June to get him in place. And then longer still to get Matty Taylor in place so that we could actually start our recruitment for this season. So yeah, we've been behind the curve, as it were.
What's your first impressions of Taylor? Because he was in charge at Walsall for a short period and didn't particularly impress, especially as Walsall had some fairly decent resources to work with at the time.
I don't know if Walsall had decent. I don't know enough about Walsall to know if that's true. I do know Walsall have been a club that have had all kinds of problems, and he definitely didn't do a great job there. But it wasn't just him. So they had Michael Flynn when they sacked him, and he was supposed to be the big saviour, and that didn't work either. And Flynn's a well-regarded League Two manager, so I didn't worry too much about the Walsall thing. I guess we had to trust that Mickey Moore knew what he was doing. He'd been very clear that he wanted a good coach rather than a manager to come in, and that Taylor was that good coach. He said he knew how to work with players. He'd worked at the Spurs Academy before he had the Walsall job, and he had a great playing career. So he's a guy that we assumed would have contacts, and if he was a good coach, maybe in that new model we've got, it would work out. I know he tried to play pre-football at Walsall. They were very much into, he talked a lot about the process there, and he worried about that almost more than the results. And he admitted when he got the Shrewsbury job that he probably did that too much, and he would be more pragmatic at Shrewsbury, and that he understood now that it was a results business. And you can certainly see that in what we're doing, because we're certainly not suddenly a free-flowing team. I was hoping, if I'm honest, for a little more of that. I was hoping for more entertaining football than we got under Cotterill. You can see hints of it at times that we're trying, but they really have been hints so far, and it's been more about the result than the performance. But you can't question that he's had a decent start given all the upheaval. We've won 3 of our first 5, and we're sitting again just in the top half of the table. So as starts go, it could be worse, and hopefully there's room for improvement still.
Yeah. Summer recruitment, happy with what you brought in? I'm looking at the squad, and I think this is something that my mate Dale, as a Shrewsbury fan, said to me. He looks a little bit light up top still, maybe, which is, I speak from experience there. I've known what it's like having a squad that's light up top at the moment.
As a Shrewsbury fan, our squad feels huge, to be honest, because we've got used to Steve Cotterill, who operated with 16, 17 first-team players. And we had points at the end of last season where we only had youth team players on the bench because of injuries. It had got so ridiculous that we had no subs, really. So they were very clear it was going to be different this time. We've signed players that they've labelled as development players, so players that aren't necessarily going to make a huge impact straight away. So we've got a lad from Ireland called Tumnisha Sobowale, and we've got a lad from Brentford called Jason Soraya. And these guys have come in, and we haven't seen much of them yet, but we've been told not to expect too much of them yet. So that's been around building up more of a squad. You say up top, and up until a week ago, I'd have probably agreed with that. We have signed 2 strikers. So we've got a guy called Max Mata, who's a New Zealand striker who's come from the League of Ireland. That's been a bit of a saga. We waited a couple of weeks for him to get international clearance, but that's finally come, and he made his debut on Saturday. And we've got a guy called Kieran Phillips on loan from Huddersfield Town as well in the Championship. Phillips scored 7 goals in 20 on loan last season in this division. So he's got some League One pedigree, and there's hope that he'll deliver goals for us as well. So when you got Daniel Udo and Ryan Bowman, who you guys might know because he's a Carlisle lad on top of that, it's a little bit more strength in attacking areas now. I know we're trying to do business before the window closes on Friday night, so who knows what our squad will look like on Saturday, but we probably want a midfielder. And one of our left wing back, Jordan Shipley, picked up a nasty looking knee injury on Saturday. As supporters, we're yet to be told the severity of that, but I was at the game and it looked serious to me, and there's been hints about us going out and looking for a left wing back as well, potentially to replace him.
And I'm glad you've managed to go through your summer recruitment there without mentioning one player, because he was going to be my next question.
I was saving that because I knew you'd do that at some point.
Well, Morgan Feeney, how's he settling in? Because I think it's probably fair to say he won't get the best reception on Saturday, which is a shame because he was a great player for us, and he could be fantastic on his day. But I think the way he left it probably left a bit of a better taste in the mouth.
Yeah, it was an odd one. He was the second signing we announced. We got Carl Winchester and then Feeney in the space of a couple of days. And the Feeney one was, I suppose, a bit of a statement by us in a way, in that we're signing, the captain of a newly promoted team in our division. And we were, from our perspective, good signing, good solid signing who was going to strengthen. We needed somebody in defence. We'd just lost Matthew Pennington, or at that point we hadn't, but we knew we were going to, and he's now gone to Blackpool. So Feeney was the ready-made replacement before Pennington had even officially gone. So, yeah, I was pleased with that signing. I'll be honest, if I was looking at that as a Carlisle fan, I'd have been a bit annoyed. I'd have thought, Shrewsbury Town, why the hell has he gone there? They're no bigger than us. I've seen some on social media, some angry Carlisle fans who, stating that, we're the bigger club than them. Obviously I'm a Shrewsbury fan, I'm biased, I'm not going to agree with that. But I would say we're a very similar status. We've both predominantly bobbed along in Leagues 1 and 2 in our history. We've both had spells in what is now the Championship. I think, okay, you've been to the top flight. We haven't managed that yet. I say, you got a dream. But
we've had one season there. We can't really brag too much about it.
I don't see huge differences between the two clubs. You are getting more supporters at the moment, but that's a relatively recent thing that your crowd seem to have rocketed up a little bit in the last couple of seasons. So it was a slight surprise. I don't know the reasons behind it. I don't know if we were willing to pay him a lot more than you were. That would surprise me because like I said, I think I've already touched on, we are not a high spending club. Yeah. So I don't know what it was about, but from our perspective, good signing. And so far he's done well. He slotted into that defence and looked very solid. We got a good back three actually. So we got Morgan Feeney alongside Shay Dunkley, our captain. He's quality at this level. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, we got a lad from Sunderland on loan called Joe Anderson. And then we got Tom Flanagan sitting on the bench, who frankly would get into most League One defences as well. So we got 4 really good League One centre backs actually. So Feeney's looked good to me, and I'm sure he'll get a rough reception on Saturday, but he'll know that. And how often do you see players when they get barracked by their old fans, as it were, rise to the occasion? And we're all joking amongst ourselves, he's going to pop up with that 97th minute winner or something.
100%.
100%. You just never know, because he doesn't strike me as the kind of character who's going to be put off by a few boos from you guys, frankly.
No, probably not. The other connection between the two clubs, or one of them, Ryan Bowman, mentioned him just before. Obviously, he's a Carlisle lad. He never really made it with us, unfortunately. He's one of it happens quite often with us. Young lads come through and it just doesn't quite make it. And they usually end up bobbing about at Workington and Penrith and places like that and don't really make it. But Ryan's one who's dug in and actually made a good career for himself. He's quite an important part of your team. I think he's been captain a few times as well as, he's obviously not club captain, but he seems to do quite well for you guys.
He's been named as a vice captain this season. It's an odd one. We signed him from Exeter a couple of seasons ago. Steve Cotterill signed him, and in his first year, he scored 13 goals, did really well. Last year, he struggled and frankly spent more time on the bench than on the pitch. I think 4 or 5 goals all season. This season, and we all expected him to be released in the summer, and I suspect if Steve Cotterill had stayed, he might have been. But change of leadership, as it were, and a new idea. And I suppose Mickey Moore looked at it and saw him as an experienced head to keep around the place. He kept him in, and because we'd struggled at first to bring in strikers, he's found himself in the starting lineup. And fair dues to him. He scored a goal on the opening day of the season as we beat Cheltenham, and he's basically started every game since then. His place is under more pressure now that we've signed Matter and Phillips, so that'll be one to keep an eye on. But I've just got a feeling he'll probably hold his place on Saturday at your place. One is that connection thing. You always think, these things work sometimes. And secondly, I'm not sure that Phillips is coming back from a long injury, so I'm not sure he's ready for 90 minutes anyway. Mata maybe still adapting to English football. So I think Bowman might have a game or two more to prove his worth before his place becomes under serious threat. So I expect you'll see him on Saturday.
Yeah. The final sort of connection I want to talk about is obviously the man who's in charge of Brunton Park, Mr. Paul Simpson. He was also in charge of you guys for a while as well. What's your reflections on his time in charge at Shrewsbury? I think it's interesting because the only job he ever talks about, he said he had a bad time and didn't enjoy it, was at Stockport, which I think was after you guys, obviously. But he got so close to that promotion with you guys, didn't he? Never quite worked out.
So he's one of those, I'm probably kinder to Paul Simpson than most Shrewsbury fans. He's not massively popular with our fans. He's not going to get a big ovation from the away end on Saturday. He had one season when he took us to the playoff final, but that was a year when, by our standards, we did go for it financially. Yeah. So he's the man who signed Grant Holt for our club. We shattered our transfer record to sign Grant Holt for 170 grand. Holt was outstanding. And then we had some other players in that team who were also far too good for League Two. And really, with what he had at his disposal, we should have got promoted. Never mind the playoffs. We should have been, challenging for the top three easily. So it was a frustration in a way. And then in the second season, he had to sell Holt because we'd made Holt a promise that if offers came in, we'd put them to him. And he went off to Norwich, and we struggled to replace him. And we went backwards. And by the time Simpson was sacked, we were in a lower mid-table, which, the expectation at that point for us in League Two was way above that. He didn't help himself with the fans. We had a couple of games. I think it was Burton away. We lost at Burton and the fans were giving him a bit of stick. And in his post-match interview, he called the Shrewsbury fans diabolical. Now, managers say things in a post-match interview. It's tense, it's het up. And I used to be a sports journalist briefly, so I've been the person asking those questions in my career. And I feel a little bit more sympathy for him than maybe some Shrewsbury fans do. But that diabolical comment has haunted him with Shrewsbury fans ever since, and they won't forget. So he won't get a big ovation from us. But for me, he gave us an exciting season. He was given the budget to do it, but we played some good football. We had some good footballers, just didn't quite get the results that we should have done on the pitch. So he's clearly done great stuff for you guys, and I'm pleased to see him doing well. Because the other thing is, I was a sports journalist at that time. I've interviewed Simpson a few times in that Shrewsbury period. I wasn't the Shrewsbury reporter, but I got to speak to him a few times, and he was a good guy. I liked him as a human being. I really liked him as well, and he's the kind of person I want to see successful, and I think he deserves success, and I'm pleased he's getting it with you.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. Quickly before I do predictions, just in terms of your general start of the season, are you pretty happy with it then? Just looking there, you're not conceding many goals. As you mentioned there, you've got a very good defence, and maybe the goals will start to come now. You've got those signings in, I guess.
Yeah, we've been solid. It's been a summer upheaval. We've lost players that we wouldn't have wanted to lose. We've lost a manager, obviously, and a lot of change. So we didn't know what to expect. I think there was this feeling that the wheels might come off and we might find ourselves embroiled in a relegation battle. And who knows, we might yet find that. But fingers crossed, so far we've been solid. We've got those 3 wins from 5. I think the fixture list has been kind to us. We haven't had to play your Derbys or your Portsmouths or anything so far. Win over Cheltenham at home. We lost at home to Lincoln. Away win against Fleetwood, who are struggling themselves. And that was against 10 men, by the way. I don't know if you saw that, but we played half that game on Saturday against 10 men after their goalie was sent off. So I think, we've had a few things go our way, and I suspect there are definitely tougher fixtures around the corner for us. So we needed to get points on board early, but we've done that. So hopefully that'll give them confidence, and hopefully we can kick on again on Saturday, get a win against you guys. That would be nice. And suddenly we're in a good position.
Well, in that case, it brings me to the point of asking you for a prediction for the Saturday's game. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be going for a win, based on what you just said there.
I'm humble, Lee, so I'm going to say a draw, actually. I'll take a draw at your place. I'll take a draw at most places away from home. We're not always the best travellers. 1-1. I think it'll be a competitive game. You seem to get 10,000 crowds these days, so I suspect it'll be noisy, intimidating. I'll take a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I think
Morgan Feeney with an equaliser in the last minute.
Yes,
just to break
of course
your heart.
Of course he will. That'll just be typical. Chris, thanks for your time, and all the best for the rest of the season after this weekend. Yeah, big thanks once again to Chris for giving up his time early today to speak to me about Shrewsbury Town. Yes, nice little mention, I think, without realising it for Dan there. He was talking about, there's some fun saying about Carlisle are much bigger than Shrewsbury these days. So I think he might have been talking about Dan's comments on Twitter there, which is good fun, but there you go. Yeah, Mike. So Shrewsbury Town at home. Big game, this, isn't it? Yeah. So I've gone 5 games. What's it? 5 games in now without a win. Really need to be looking to get 3 points on the board now, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping that the Morgan Feeney element of it actually creates a bit of an atmosphere, a bit more of an atmosphere than if we were playing just, I don't know, Cambridge at home or someone. You know, I'm hoping that there's just that little bit more to it for fans and really get behind the team and finally get that first win of the season and a big monkey off our back.
Well, we'll get straight into it then. Morgan Feeney, let's talk about him. So obviously left the Blues in the summer. Been a lot of talk about that since then, you know, in terms of, you know, was it a sideways step? I think most would agree. I think most Shrewsbury fans would probably say, yeah, it's a bit of an odd one, bit of a sideways step for him, but he's made the move. He's probably going to get some stick because of the way it happened, and Simmer's clearly not happy that he didn't tell him and just went and did it. Do you think he's going to be bothered about that?
Well, yeah, it depends what you mean by bothered. I think he's probably going to get some stick, and he strikes me as the kind of player who might want to score a goal on the back of that stick to wind people up a little bit.
It strikes me that he'll just up his game. I don't think he's the kind who's going to be bothered about it.
No.
I think almost the silent treatment would be better for him, wouldn't it, really? Just completely ignore him and just not give him any appreciation would be better than booing him almost. What do you reckon?
I don't know, because I felt he really seemed to thrive when people were supporting him and cheering him on and shouting his name when he made a sort of a good block or a good clearance and stuff. So, I don't know, maybe from his side of things, he might think, I gave this club everything and these fans are booing me. You know? So, it'd be interesting to see how it goes. I feel it could go one of 2 ways.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those ones, isn't it? Like, you look at what happened with Patrick. Patrick was honest and said, look, I want to play as a winger. Which, you know, we think is a bit mad, but you got to respect him. He stuck to his guns and said, you know, that's what I want to do. He's dropped down a division and moved a bit closer to where he's from originally to do that. And then you've got, you know, Christian Dennis, who turned down the 1 year plus deal because he wanted a 2-year deal and he wanted to be close to home. You totally respect that. You'd be honest. Feeney left us hanging. That's the problem. There's a way of doing it, isn't there, really, in terms of that kind of thing? And, you know, his agent can say what. Sorry, not his agent. His agent's girlfriend can say what she wants on Twitter about it. But, you know, they're the facts. He didn't tell somebody the full crack. And I'm sure if he just told someone, look, I've been offered a good deal by Shrewsbury, I'm going to take it. He'd have gone,
and I think as well, if Hearts and Hibs were in for him, he would have signed for one of them. Yeah.
So you do wonder if he's been spun a little yarn there by someone, to say the least. But yeah, look, at the moment, he'd probably sit there looking, I've made the right decision because look where they are in the league compared to us at the end of the day. So, you know, he's probably the one having the last laugh at the end. Hopefully we can get the win on Saturday and start clawing a few points back to get a bit closer to them. With any luck. Shrewsbury Town, in terms of their summer signings, Mike, obviously we've touched Feeney already. What about the rest of them? What's your thoughts on
them? Well, for me, I would be concerned with the players they've lost more so than the players they've brought in. Matthew Pennington to Blackpool, I think was a big loss. I think Feeney is his replacement, really. And Luke Leahy to Wickham, big loss.
Yeah, captain,
but they've kept hold of a couple of decent players. What's his name? The midfielder now. I can't remember.
Elliot Bennett?
Tom Bayliss.
Tom Bayliss, that's the one.
Yeah, because he went to Preston a couple of years ago for like 2 mil.
Did he?
And then, and I think that's literally like 2019.
Wow.
You
say a couple of years ago, that's 5 years ago now. Nearly 5 years ago, isn't it?
That's ridiculous that 2019 is 5 years ago. But yeah, either way, he's a really good player. And obviously, you know, Ryan Bowman, we know what he can do. So yeah, they've still got some good players. It's just they're one of them. I couldn't at the start of the season see them near the top end, but I couldn't see them near relegation either. Yeah.
They've sat, obviously, Aidan O'Brien has left as well to go to Sutton United on loan. I think they were expecting big things of him when they signed him, and he hasn't quite turned out to be the player they hoped. Yeah, in terms of signing, I'm just looking at a few of the other ones here. I think Mal Benning's a good signing, actually. He's a good experienced player at the low league level, isn't he? For Port Vale and Mansfield in the past. Max Matters an interest. Sorry?
Carl Winchester as well.
Carl Winchester, yes, sorry. That's a really good shout. I mean, he was excellent at Forest Green Rovers a couple of years ago, seems to remember.
Yeah, and Cheltenham as well, he was there, I think.
Yeah, it didn't quite work out at Sunderland for him, I don't think, but he's, clearly a good player at League One level. Who else? Max Matters an interesting one, isn't he? Signed from the Irish League. We were talking about players from the Irish League. I think you mentioned it, actually, didn't you? I think possibly. I think you said he was a possible good signing for us, and obviously, turns out he'd already gone to Shrewsbury. So in the end, I think they were waiting on the whatchamacallit, weren't they? The international clearance to get him in, possibly. So that's probably why he didn't get mentioned earlier. Kieran Phillips, he had quite a good load spell last season, didn't he? At Morecambe, 7 goals in 20 appearances in a poor side. So yeah, can't really argue too much with that. I mean, that's 14 goals over a season normally. Looking at the squad and the players they've already got in, Tom Flanagan, he's a defender. Most teams at our level will be quite happy to have, wouldn't they? Midfield, Elliot Bennett's got a lot of experience. Elliot Forbes on loan from Luton. As you mentioned, Ryan Bowman is the tax one that stands out. It looked like he might have been on his way out in the summer, potentially, before Cotterill was sacked, but they decided to keep him on for a bit of experience in there. And, he started the season fairly well. So
I think he's club captain as well, isn't he?
No, it's what's his name? I think it might be Che Dunkley is the club captain at the moment. I think, yeah. I could be wrong with that. I think I'll have to double check, but yeah, I'm fairly sure he is. I think he's vice captain. I think that's what he is. Ryan Bowman. So there you go. So yeah, last time out for Shrewsbury. Sorry, before we even get into that, I should say. Matt Taylor brought in as their manager this summer. What do you think about that? Because he didn't do that well at Walsall, did he? No.
It seems a bit of a peculiar one. It seems he's kind of one of them names on the merry-go-round a little bit now. Because I think, was he at Exeter?
You're thinking of... Annoyingly,
I'm thinking of the other one.
You're thinking of the one who's at Rotherham now, yeah. So basically there's two. He's the one who... So the one at Rotherham is the one who was a player at Exeter. Yeah. He was a goalkeeper back in the day, then became a defender, and then also he's been a coach. This Matt Taylor is the Portsmouth goal of the season, lob from the halfway line. Yes. West Ham as well, player. So he was coaching at Tottenham, then he got the job at Walsall, didn't do very well, lost that, and Shrewsbury. I'd say he's one of those ones who... He's one of these ones who's seen as a really good coach at academies and does a really good job, and clubs think, we'll go for him, we'll bring him in. And the reality is, you don't have time to put your philosophy down or your processes down.
He can do a good PowerPoint presentation about philosophies and stuff. It'd be interesting.
Looks like he's learned his lesson from Walsall, though, doesn't he? He's getting a few results this time around.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, Shrewsbury would do well to maybe give him a little bit of time. Obviously only joining in the summer. Give him sort of at least till January before, if he's a disaster, before you consider getting rid of him. But I don't think it's looking that way at all.
No, it looks like they've managed to get a couple of extra forwards in, and that's probably helped them a little bit to make sure they'll probably keep them away. I expect them to be similar position this season to what they were last 12th, around about there. I reckon. It wouldn't surprise me. Yes, last time out they got a 1-0 win at Fleetwood Town thanks to a Daniel Udo goal. Have you seen the highlights from this game there, Mike?
No.
I watched some on YouTube this morning. Absolutely mental. So Fleetwood basically battered them by the looks of things. It's crazy. They had 2 or 3 chances before Shrewsbury took the lead, and the goal came from, I think, a Fleetwood corner was cleared, and the player basically got the ball about 40 yards from goal, slipped. Udo nipped in and basically ran from 10 yards inside his own half, ran the length of the pitch and put it in the back of the net. And then literally 2 minutes later, ball over the top and Bowman's clean through, and their keeper comes out and cleans him out and gets sent off. So they had to play half the game with 10 men, and yet it looked like Fleetwood had pretty much all the chances. They were absolutely peppering the Shrewsbury goal, and then they had another one sent off in injury time to basically kill the game off. So it sort of shows that, it looks like they're very good and solid defensively, Shrewsbury, but in terms of scoring, there's still something a little bit missing there, which sounds familiar, doesn't it? But yeah, it will be very interesting to see how they cope in this one. Looks like Feeney's playing on the the right side of the back three, which is pretty much what he was doing for us. So it does make you wonder, because there was a lot of talk that he wasn't happy that he wasn't playing in the middle, wasn't there?
Yeah.
That's the suggestion, which maybe was nonsense by the looks of things, but there you go. Results so far this season, though, they've done okay, haven't they, I suppose? I suppose the defeat to Stevenage will be disappointing, and the 1-0 home loss to Lincoln, but they've got a 2-1 win over Burton and a 1-0 win over Cheltenham. So looking at the games they've played in the league so far, they've probably been quite kind to them, haven't they? I think it would be fair to say. Especially when you look at ours so far, ours are all against teams up at the top, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think they've just had a solid start, haven't they? Yeah, and I think this game, I mean, I'd say more for us is a chance to. I think a win for us would be bigger than a win for them. In terms of sort of setting a marker on where you are, where you're at this stage of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, time for Played for Both. So obviously this is a feature we brought back this season because we're playing against a lot of new teams. This is not quite so new, Shrewsbury. I think we did do one a couple of years ago on them, and Dan has a feeling he may have picked a player that he already picked previously last time, but it's quite an interesting one. So here's the Played for Both sent in by Dan for this week.
This week's Played for Both is a man who was born in Leicester but actually started his career at Stoke, and it's Lewis Neal. Like I say, started at Stoke, played a few games in his 5 years there, actually had a loan to IBV in Iceland. From Stoke he went to Preston, quick loan at Notts County, and then he joined us in 2009. He didn't really stay with us for too long though. I think he had played about 16 games for us. He came in the January. I think he went to the end of the season, and then when his contract was up, he went to Shrewsbury, where he then made the move to USA after his time at Shrewsbury. He was at Orlando City, DC United, back to Orlando City, and he also ended up playing in the indoor league at the fantastically titled Orlando Seawolves, and he's now interim manager at Miami FC. Unfortunately, that's not Inter Miami with Lionel Messi. It's Miami FC, who are in the US Championship, which is the second tier. And that's where he is currently, Lewis Neal. I do think we've possibly done him before, but never mind.
Yeah, so as you said that, I'm pretty sure he's done it before, but it's a nice little update because obviously, like I said, he is interim manager of Miami FC. So not a bad little career to have in the end, really, is it?
No, fun fact as well, at Orlando City, he played alongside Kaká.
Did he?
Yeah, so he played alongside one of the best players of all time, Michael Bridges, as well.
Yep.
That's a side note, but yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. Yes, so there you go. That's Lewis Neal and the Play for Both this week. I'm going to go through a little bit the list of the other ones on there. Derek Asamoah, of course, is a well-known one to both sets of fans, quite a popular player of both sets. Well, maybe not so popular with Shrewsbury, because obviously he went AWOL there, didn't he, to force through a transfer to Nice in France. He didn't actually make a first.
Nice of him.
Oh, shut up. just 1 sec. I haven't got. Annoyingly, I'm looking at his Wikipedia page now, so I can't press this button quickly enough. That's enough of that. Yes, so Derek Asamoah, he didn't actually play a game for Nice in the end. Obviously, ended up with us eventually. Austin Berkeley, there's a great name from the past. Early noughties, I think, under Roddy Collins, I think, in the period where we were signing 2 or 3 players every week on like 1 week or 1 month contracts. It was a bit mental back then. The legendary Frank Clark, of course, he played for both. Sam Cosgrove, Russell Coughlin, another player who's very popular at both sets of fans, I think. John Cullen, that's a real name for the past. Jamie Devitt, who seems to have been on loan to half of the lower leagues, I think. Anthony Gerrard, he's you kind of forget how good he was in that one season we had him, wasn't he? He played a decent part, and obviously he was a big lad back then. But good player. Alice Gilliard, Paul Gorman, Montserrat's finest, Anthony Griffith, Jeremy Haylan, David Hughes. David Hughes is one of the one-game wonders. Disappeared after, I think, 60 minutes of his first game. He was a big signing on loan and everyone's expecting big things of him. You think he went from Shrewsbury to Cardiff for like £500,000 years later on, which is mental.
Well, saying I've expected big things, you missed one, Stephen Hindmarch.
Yeah, Stephen Hindmarch is one who never quite lived up to the hype, didn't he?
Yeah.
I'm skimming through a few here, to be fair. But Jamie McClenn, Sean Miller and Paul Murray both were there. Jamie Proctor had a spell at Shrewsbury as well. David Raven had a decent spell there. And it will always baffle me why Dan never chooses Ian Stevens on these things when he's available. So maybe he's saving him for Bolton. I'll double check with him on that. I'll make sure he picks him at least one time because I need to give him 5 minutes to talk about Ian Stevens, don't I?
Only 5.
Yeah, no. James Tavernier, Mark Tierney, and Stuart Whitehead and Mark Winstanley both had spells there as well. So there you go. Right, let's talk about the Blues then, Mike. It's a tough one to judge, this one, isn't it? Because it wasn't great last week. Simo was not happy afterwards. He made a few decisions, some strong decisions with the team selection. Is he going to stick by all of those?
It's tough. I think he's going to stick with the keeper.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if he went unchanged overall, actually.
I'd be a little bit disappointed if he was unchanged for his starting 11, if I'm honest with you. At home, I'd like to join Gibson in.
At home, I would rather see Gibson in for McCalmont, definitely. Barkley, he picked up a knock the other day, so it wouldn't surprise me if the back three is unchanged.
Imagine maybe Jack Ellis comes onto the bench as the other defender, or maybe Jack Robinson, possibly.
Yeah. But front two, it wouldn't surprise me if that's unchanged.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in a sec. But John Mellish, do you think he's likely to be punished for his throw-in? Or do you think that was maybe more a, look, you can take this, I know that the keeper's messed up a bit here, but you shouldn't have done it, but the keeper is also to blame, but you can take the stick that I'm giving you here, John?
Yeah, I think Mellish has to start, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're mental not to. So midfield, would you bring in Gibson? Would you bring Harris on the bench?
Yeah, I would.
100%. I'll be honest with you, I think I'd probably drop Charles from the bench. Might seem harsh, but when he's come on, he's not really. He's been caught on the ball a couple of times, and he needs to really. He did it again against Port Vale, and I was thinking, you just need to get. You need to be a lot sharper when you're on the pitch. He did pick up, to be fair, and he got better, but you can't just come on and be cold. You've got to be ready for the pace of the game.
Especially when Harris is really sort of knocking on the door a bit.
Yeah, he's shown what he's got, hasn't he, in these games? Okay, then attack. You said there. You're going to stick with the front two. Do you think we should maybe be sticking with a front two for a little while now to try and build up a partnership of some sort? Obviously, depending on whether someone comes in tomorrow, but yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, I could argue Maguire and Plange played well against Port Vale. They just didn't quite score.
Didn't quite link that well, though, either, did they? I mean, maybe, but that's the kind of thing that comes with time, isn't it? You can't just expect it to... It's not always going to instantly happen, is it? You've got to give them a few games to get into it.
Yeah, and as well, I think that they're both the kind of striker who like to kind of peel off and put defenders on the back foot, and you need a Jordan Gibson to run into that space in front of the back four to cause problems and maybe play balls in behind. So I'd stick with them two, and hopefully Gibson playing them behind.
And I suppose if you put Gibson in there as well, you can switch to 4-3-3 if you need to quite quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the main reason I'd like to see him in here as well. There you go. In terms of upcoming fixtures, Mike, I've just got them up here. These next two games, or next three games, are arguably quite important to get results from, aren't they? Because you've got today, Stevenage away. I know Stevenage have a good start, but they've had a couple of ones that haven't looked quite as good since then.
Well, Evans could be off as well, couldn't he?
And there's rumours Evans going to Hibs, isn't there? You've also got Lincoln City away then. Because following that, the next four fixtures after that are so tough, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Derby at home, Wickham away, Peterborough at home, and Bolton away. We could be in... Look, I don't want to be in, negative as possible here, but you could be in deep trouble after those games if you haven't managed to pick up points before then to get yourself a little bit of a base to work with, couldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. And likewise, though, I mean, if and it might sound absolutely ridiculous, but if we can get 2 wins on the bounce against Stevenage and 3 wins on the bounce against Shrewsbury, Stevenage and Lincoln, then all of a sudden going into that derby game isn't as terrifying.
And you've got a big crowd behind it. I mean, look, they're going to bring 2,000 to 3,000 out there, which is fantastic. And I imagine the Waterworks is going to be open for the away fans for that one. I hope it is, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, don't give them it, just give him it. Make it a good atmosphere, make it a spectacle.
Because we've said before, often when the opposition fans bring a load and they're loud, it kicks our fans into gear as well. Exactly.
So kind of hope for that. Okay, prediction time. Prediction scores are the same, aren't they? I don't think they've changed at all.
Yeah, none of us predicted us to lose against Port.
We're all far too optimistic. That's the problem, unfortunately. So it's still me on 3 points, Dan on 2, and Mike on 0. So, Mike, what are you going to do to get yourself off 0?
So I'm going to go for a... See, it's one of them. I can see us conceding, but I also want to say we're going to win. But if we concede and win, then that would involve scoring 2 goals, which seems insane. But I'll go for a 2-1 win, and I'll go for goals from Maguire and Mellish.
Okay. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win, because we were a little bit negative on Anderson at the weekend, to be fair. So I'm going to show a bit of faith. I'm going to back him to keep a clean sheet. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. Morgan Feeney on goal. No, I'm only kidding. 2-0 win. Luke Plange is going to get his first goal, and Jordan Gibson will get the other. So Plange and Gibson for the goals. Right, here is Dan's prediction for the game.
I'm going to go for our first win of the season, 2-1. And I'm going to go for goals from Owen Moxon, celebrating the ending of the transfer window and his remaining at Brunton Park. And I'm going to go for Ryan Edmondson to get the other.
Well, there you go. We didn't really mention that in the transfer talk, did we? Owen Moxon, do you think he's going to stay?
Well, from what I've heard, Blackpool are the only ones who have been making serious inroads towards him, and their midfield is looking quite stacked now, so it wouldn't surprise me if they're no longer interested.
No, and it sounds like the club are not really interested unless the offer's silly, really. Like I'm talking about close to 7 figures, basically, is what they'll be considering. So, I could totally understand that, and that's exactly the right way to do it. Right, before the XL section, let's do the answer to this week's question of the week. So I told you the fact that the last time United beat Shrewsbury Town in a league game at Brunton Park was in 13th of January 2001. It was a 1-0 win. So what was the starting 11 and who scored the winning goal that day? So do you want to have a try and guess at the goal first, Mike, maybe?
I'd go Steve Soley.
Bang on the money.
Yeah.
Steve Soley got the winning goal in that game, 1-0 win. So that's one of your starting 11 you've managed to get there. Do you want to have a crack and try and guess as much as you can of the starting 11?
I mean, this is going to be a struggle. I'm just going to name players that I'm pretty sure were at the club at that time.
Goalkeeper.
Goalkeeper, was Peter Keane there?
It wasn't Peter Keane in nets that day.
Would it have been Luke Weaver?
No.
I haven't got
this is under. I should say Ian Atkins was manager at this point, so I might give you a bit of a hint of who the players were.
Ian Atkins was manager, so no, I haven't got a clue on the keeper.
Matty Glennon was the goalkeeper.
Okay.
We had a back 5 that day.
Do
you want me to just name it? Because you're not going to get these.
I'll go Stuart Whitehead.
Yeah, Stuart Whitehead was in there,
yeah. Lee Andrews?
No.
Okay.
He wasn't involved that day, actually, funny enough.
Peter Murphy?
I'm just looking at it. Peter Murphy, no, that's the season too early.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hopeless at this. I'll let you take it away.
I'll have a go. You know what? Surprisingly, it actually wasn't a back 5. I was just looking there because I thought we played a back 5 most that season, but we didn't actually have that. So it was a Matty Glenn in the net. Your back 4 was Mark Birch at right back, Lee Madison at left back, and then your 2 centre backs were Stuart Whitehead and Mark Winstanley, previously mentioned. Shrewsbury connections there. Gordon Connolly played on the right of midfield, and then you had, I say right midfield, it's kind of a weird one because it was almost like a 4-3-1-2. So you got Connolly, Mick Galloway, and Richard Procas in midfield. Steve Soley's sort of just behind your front 2 of Scott Dobie and Ian Stevens. And your 2 subs that were made that day, Tony Hemmings came on for Mick Galloway, And Carl Heggs came on for Ian Stevens. So there you go. That was the team that day. I'm just looking at the Shrewsbury team. Ryan Lowe, the future Preston manager, was on up front for them with Nigel Jemson, our old friend there. So there you go. Right. Let's get on to the X-File section then, Mike. Not too much to cover this week. Fairly quiet week last weekend. Extended by the National League having the traditional bank holiday games as well for them. So they have games on Saturday and Monday over the August weekend. But starting on the Friday night, Naki Wells, he scored for Bristol City in their 1-1 draw at Hull City. Onto the Saturday, James Tavernier scored for Rangers in their 2-0 win at Ross County. You haven't seen this goal. It's a brilliant, brilliant finish. Really, really good goal. But then he always scores either brilliant free kicks or long ranges or penalties, doesn't he? So
yeah.
There you go. Amari Patrick, he scored for Sutton, but they lost 3-1 at Newport County. Back to Friday night, Adam Clayton, he got sent off for Rochester in their 2-2 home draw with Bromley. There's nothing quite to bring you down to earth when you've been relegated to the National League, is there, then a home game where you draw against a team from the M25 non-league circuit, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite the eye-opener, I think it's fair to say. It is a really good one. Mark Beck, he scored and continued his great start to the season. His 100th career goal in Solihull Moors 2-0 win at Oldham Athletic. And that result puts them top of the National League after 6 games.
Fair play.
Really, really brilliant, isn't it? I mean, look, you know what? I'm going to put it out there, right? Compared to somebody, if we offer the chance to either have a young sort of untried target man from a under 21 setup at a Premier League club tomorrow, or Mark Beck coming back, what would you rather have?
I think Mark Beck's more what we need, definitely. Yeah.
I'm not sure he's League One quality. I'm not saying I'd want him, but if you had the choice of the two,
but I think his time in non-league as well would toughen him up into more what we need right now.
Yeah, he's not quite. I don't think he's ever quite going to be good enough for Football League level, or maybe League Two at best. But you know, fair play to me. Like 100 goals is a fantastic tie to reach for any player in their career, whatever level they've been playing at. So great stuff for Mark Beck there. George Glendon, he scored for Chester in their 2-0 home win over Farsley Athletic. And another terrific one here, Owen Windsor. He netted from the spot as Chippenham Town beat Slough Town 2-1 at home in the National League South. Yeah, so not a huge amount in terms of goals this weekend. A little bit more to add, though. Danny Devine, he's got himself a new club, hasn't he? He's gone to
he's
Guiseley.
Really gone downhill, hasn't he, really?
It's a strange, wasn't he? Because you know what? He looked very capable when he played on the beach, but it's just not worked out for him, has it, at all? Real shame that for him, but there you go. And obviously back to the PFA Awards. Brad Potts, he won the goal of the season for his stunning volley for Preston against Luton. And James Trafford was named in the League One team of the season. And I think that's it, Mike, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
X-File stuff. And that's also it for this week's preview episode. Yes, thanks once again, Mike, for joining me. Thanks once again to our sponsor, the London Branch, for their support this season. Always appreciate it. If you want to get in contact with us, you can find us on Twitter, at Brunton Bugle, and also on Instagram under the same handle. You can email us, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Just search for Brunton Bugle and click like, and you can also send a message on there. And you can find us on the Be Just Unfair Enough Facebook group. All 3 of us are on there, so you can, if you need anything, just find us there. And yeah, that's it. So you're not at the game this weekend, are you, Mike? I think your next game's Derby, is it? Yeah,
my next game will be the Derby home game.
Glory Hunter.
Yeah, I know.
There you go. There's not much glory at the moment, is there? But there you go. But no, we're just all hoping for a little bit of good news tomorrow in terms of transfers, aren't we? And, you know, hopefully get someone over the line and boost the squad. Have the, you know, it's one of those ones. It's frustrating because J.K. Gordon's been linked. I'm sorry, I'm going to be tangent here when we're finishing, but J.K. Gordon looks like he's about to sign for Cambridge, and you kind of feel like, could we have held off on signing Plange and hopefully got J.K. Gordon back instead? There's a suggestion he didn't want to come north, which maybe explains why he's gone to Cambridge. You know, he's done one trip up here, he doesn't want to do it again. But you do wonder if maybe we could have been a bit more patient with some of the signings, which I'm sort of inclined to think the same thing. I only want us to get a target man if he's going to be good enough. I don't want us getting some untried youngster who's not going to be up to the job.
No.
I would rather we waited until January and just worked our way through till then.
But some of our best loanees that we've had have been completely untested, and we've been their first games in the Football League.
True, but we've got a few too many of them at the moment. That's the problem. So it's just the way it is. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Cheers.
Always a pleasure, and thanks for listening and Up the Blues.
Up the Blues.